So, our topic is third wave feminism, but before we get into details of the third wave, let me begin by giving you a brief background on the early forms of feminism. Beginning in the early 1800s, the main role of women in the United States was to stay at home and take care of the kids, basically as regular housewives. This was known as the cult of domesticity or Republican motherhood. But eventually, women began to move away from this stereotypical expectation that they had in the early 1800s and began to become more involved in movements such as the temperance movement in the 1850s. This eventually led to the 18th Amendment being passed. Other famous figures such as the Grimke sisters, who you guys might remember from our topics on slavery, they did not only fight for racial rights but also for gender equality. Eventually, women began to come together at other meetings such as the Seneca Falls Convention, where they planned out what they could do to advance their role in society beyond simply being housewives and fighting for their legal rights, voting rights. And some of their famous figures there were Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. So the Seneca Falls Convention took place in 1848. Another prominent leader of the women's right movement was Susan B. Anthony. Anthony fought for voting rights and property rights and was an especially important figure for motivating other women to join the cause as well. The 19th Amendment, passed in 1919, eventually granted women suffrage, and this marked a very important turning point for women because they actually achieved what they had been fighting for so much time. Another extremely important woman in the 1900s was Betty Friedan. Betty Friedan wrote The Feminine Mystique, and her novel inspired women to move away from previously stereotypical forms of what they were expected to do as housewives, and inspired them to move forward to look for bigger roles in society and equality with men.
In your own words, what is your understanding of feminism?
Feminism is the idea that women are equal in stature, equal in ability, equal in pay to men. I think there's unfortunately too much, I don't want to say discrimination, but there is like this idea, hopefully not too much anymore, that men can do more than women. And if you start and look like some fire departments around the world, they have women who are actually out fighting fires, and they have women who are moving into combat roles. So I think it really is this idea that women are empowered, women can do what they want, and that we should accept that. And it's a movement for acceptance, I would say, that women are equal to men.
Feminism is an approach to sex and gender equality understood through social theories and political activism. There's a lot of power imbalances in this world, and feminists are the people who try and fix that through speeches and debates, and they try and fix things like the wage gap.
Feminism is the belief that women have been oppressed by men throughout our entirety of existence, and that now at this time women should be able to not only be equal to men but also receive some sort of privileges over men as compensation for the oppression that they have put up with.
It's basically the recognition that gender inequality has been and is still a reality, and the desire to change that.
Feminism is the belief that society is mainly dominated by men and that women should have more or even equal rights.
Feminism for me is the granting of rights towards women. Like, it just starts with that. That's the fundamental concept of feminism, just to give egalitarianism to women. But feminism is a bit more than that. It's not just like, it's just not egalitarianism. It's more about like opportunity, equal opportunity, equal rights, and equal pay, etc.
fighting for women's rights?
It's a part of it, but it's also feeling that you need to have equality, but you're also a very strong-minded and sometimes outspoken woman for the rights of women.
For me, it's about being independent and.
But yes,
but that's from my background because I'm coming from a more male-dominant society, so now I'm like independent and doing things on my own.
Feminism, by definition, is the belief that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities. It is the theory of the political, economic, and social equality of the sexes.
Beginning in the early 1990s, when Rebecca Walker coined the term third wave feminism, the third wave was born out of the discontent many women had over the second wave's narrow focus on the middle-class white women's role in the home and workplace. They didn't want to be called post-feminists because that insinuates the idea that the feminist movement's already over and the goals that they're fighting for have already been achieved, which they feel is definitely not the case. So women in the 90s and onward were so diverse that they didn't feel they could connect with the white women's feminism of the second wave. So they adopted the term third wave feminism, which allowed women in the 90s to be connected with previous women while allowing them to be independent with their ideas in their own forms of activism and protest.
Economic inequality is a paramount topic within feminism. One key term to know is the glass ceiling. The glass ceiling is defined as an unfair system or set of attitudes that prevents some people, such as women or racial minorities, from getting the most powerful jobs due to discrimination or harassment. In the United States, about 60% of all undergraduate and graduate degrees are earned by women. Yet, in certain fields such as technology, management, and politics, women are extremely underrepresented. For example, out of all Fortune 500 CEOs, only 4.6% are women. In the US Congress, women represent only 20% of senators and only 10% of governors. In identical positions, women earn only 80% of the salaries of men.
Social media contributes to the movement of feminism because it provides for a mass communications and exchange of ideas and opinions about feminism. Websites such as Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, and any internet blogs that have mass social exchanges, they all contribute to easier distribution of opinions and newer, more developed ideas about feminism. The easy accessibility of going on social media to talk about these issues about feminism leads to more ideas being developed, getting to a wider audience, and in turn getting more supporters of feminism on their side. Because of social media being so accessible and easy to use, women aren't taking to the streets to protest as much as they did during the second wave of feminism. They're more dependent on arguing on social media and protesting or talking about it on social media such as Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, anything I mentioned before, because it's more easy to access and more easy to talk about rather than leaving. While 85% of people that were surveyed say that they support equality for women, only 18% of that group actually identified as feminists. There's a distinction in the movement of feminism between moderate and extreme feminists. While moderate feminists are seen as more pushing for equality. They have a more subtle approach, and their main goal is for men and women to be seen as equal. The extreme feminists are more public in their mission towards achieving feminist goals. They are more outspoken while talking about their deprivation of rights, and some are even seen as not only attempting to achieve equality with men, but even to surpass the rights that men have to make up for the deprivation they had in earlier centuries.
I decided that I was a feminist, and this seemed uncomplicated to me. But my recent research has shown me that feminism has become an unpopular word. Women are choosing not to identify as feminist. Apparently, I am among the ranks of women whose expressions are seen as too strong, too aggressive, isolating, and anti-men, unattractive even. Why has the word become such an uncomfortable one? And if you still hate the word, it is not the word that is important. It's the idea and the ambition behind it.
Domestic violence is another key problem within feminism. Although both men and women are victims of domestic abuse, most studies indicate that women are 2 to 3 times more likely to be victims of domestic abuse.
The issue of rape is so heavily debated and brought to the forefront of the feminist movement because women argue that they are targeted by men. When they look at the statistics of the amount of men that are raped and versus the amount of women that are raped, not only in America but around the world. While the problem of rape is common, it is especially rampant in less developed areas and university campuses. One famous case of a university rape was in University of Virginia with the fraternity Phi Kappa Pi, where 7 of the members raped a woman. Although it's a serious subject that is highly debated, there's also been cases where women such as Emma Sulkowicz claim that they were raped and taken advantage of, but after her case was looked into and there was actual thorough investigation at the university, they found out that she was not raped and she falsified all the claims.
One of the most contentious issues of both the second and third waves is the women's right to legal and safe abortion. Previous to the second wave, many states passed laws outlawing abortion. However, in Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court ruled that such laws outlawing abortion straight out were unconstitutional, and that women had a right to their abortions. In addition to this ruling, however, Roe v. Wade allowed for certain restrictions to a woman's right to abortion, and such as mandatory counseling and waiting periods. In 1989 and 1992, the Supreme Court upheld and expanded such restrictions in Webster v. Reproductive Health Services and Planned Parenthood v. Casey. In 1994, Congress passed the Hyde Amendment, which prohibited the use of federal funds in Medicaid to pay for abortions except in cases of incest and rape, which makes it harder for low-income women to get abortions because they can't afford it without their health insurance. While the government can't outlaw abortion completely, it can place severe restriction on the abortion process. In addition to abortion, access to birth control has been debated in the third wave. To receive birth control, women must receive a prescription from their doctor, which has to be filled at a pharmacy. This can be restrictive to a woman's right to their reproduction because either their doctor may not give them a prescription or the pharmacy may not even fill it due to different reasons, including religious reasons. In addition, in Burwell versus Hobby Lobby, the Supreme Court ruled that employers could deny employees birth control in their health insurance plans due to the employer's religious beliefs. Another issue is emergency contraception, more commonly called the day after pill. In 2013, the FDA announced that women over the age of 15 would be able to purchase emergency contraception over the counter without a prescription, which was a big plus for the feminist movement. However, feminists are aiming to reduce the 15 age limit even further so that younger teens can get the contraception that they need so they don't get pregnant.
So, how does the United States compare to other countries around the globe when talking about feminism? Well, there are many answers to that question, but in terms of average gender equality based on various studies, including topics such as education, job rights, and legal rights, complete gender equality has not been achieved in basically any country around the world, but some are very far ahead of others. The United States falls somewhere in the middle of the spectrum when discussing women's rights. Some countries, including Iceland, Finland, and Norway, are near the top of the list of countries that allow women the most rights. But other countries, including many in the Middle East, Africa, some in Asia, lag very far behind. Many women in these countries are prevented from going to school and learning due to fears of violence, rape, and other risks that they're simply not willing to take. So women lag far behind and remain behind men, unable to ever get to the top and become leaders or individuals in their societies.
I am from Britain, and I think it is right that I am paid the same as my male counterparts. I think it is right that I should be able to make decisions about my own body. I think it is right that women be involved on my behalf in the policies and the decisions that will affect my life. I think it is right that socially I am afforded the same respect as men. But sadly, I can say that there is no one country in the world where all women can expect to receive these rights. No country in the world can yet say that they have achieved gender equality. These rights I consider to be human rights, but I am one of the lucky ones. My life is a sheer privilege because my parents didn't love me less because I was born a daughter. My school did not limit me because I was a girl. My mentors didn't assume that I would go less far because I might give birth to a child one day. These influences were the gender equality ambassadors that made me who I am today. They may not know it, but they are the inadvertent feminists who are changing the world today. We need more of those.